About a month ago, I saw this trailer with my least favorite Terminator and least favorite Stranger Kids kid. I mean, how bad could it be? It's a PG-13 January horror movie. Well, I did go see it and it wasn't that bad. It has all the elements and beats of an average ghost story, and it looks way better than a lot of other haunted house horrors that are just plain boring. Unfortunately, I never started to care about any of the characters, and I was basically watching a series of horror sequences. Reminding you of anything? So let's break it down. The movie starts with Giselle trying to escape a mansion in her car, but the gate is locked. She leaves the car to open the gates, but then a man stops her, and we can assume that it's not gonna end well for her. The main character, Kate Mackenzie, is talking to her roommate about her new job as the tutor of a little orphan girl. I don't know why the roommate is in the movie at all. All we get from this scene with the roommate is that Kate grew up without parents and she used to teach a class of 25 kids. She goes to a mental hospital to see her mom. Her mom is sitting and painting in an empty pool. She tells her about her new job, and her mom says, "Oh, the little girl is growing up without a parent. It's too much responsibility." And she's like, "Yeah, no shit, Ma, I know." She drives to the mansion and meets the house keeper. She's called Mrs. Gross. She's literally torn right out of a horror novel. Then she meets the little girl, Flora. She shows Kate her room and a weird looking mannequin. "She's grandma," she says. "Oh my god, did you stuff your grandma?" Kate says. "No, it was made after her, you silly," Flora says. They also cross a hallway, and when Kate asks about it, Flora says we never go there. So that's the horror movie room that's either locked or nobody's allowed to go to. Later, Kate sees Flora weirdly staring at the window. "I know you're gonna leave me," she says. So Kate promises her that she's not gonna leave. So begins hearing weird sounds in the house in the middle of the night. She wakes up hearing a man and a woman talking from the room they never go to. So she does what everyone would when they hear spooky sounds at night in a horror movie. She goes in the room, following the voices, and the door gets locked behind her. I hate it when horror movies do that. When the door opens, she sees Miles for the first time. "You shouldn't be in here," he says. "Yeah, doy, that's the forbidden room you just breached in the first night." In the morning, Kate gets a call from the boarding school that Miles was expelled because he tried to strangle a kid. Yep, Miles is a weird kid. At this point, we find out that Quint was the estate manager, but he died. And he's the man we saw at the beginning of the movie and the voice that Kate keeps hearing at night. And Giselle used to be their teacher. So now begins the cycle. During the day, the kids are being weird and annoying. Then Kate goes to her room where she's startled or woken up by one of the kids. Then some scary scene happens, which is only a dream. The first time, she sees Flora face down in the pool. She rushes down and jumps in the pool, but swims back in horror when she sees the white-leg ghost of a woman instead. She gets out of the pool and the kids start laughing. It was a prank. They had thrown the grandma mannequin in the pool. At one point, Kate suggests to take Flora to town to get ice cream, and Mrs. Gross says she can't leave the property. I mean, the state is almost as big as our town, so it's fine, but why can't she leave? Later again, Kate suggests to take the kids to town to buy a fish that dies in the trailer. It's like she's challenging this idea that Flora can't leave. As they're approaching the gate in the car, Flora starts crying and screaming, "I don't want to die." She leaves the car and runs to the woods. As Kate tries to open the car door, Miles slams it shut. "I know what you're scared of," he says. "That's why you leave your light on at night, isn't it?" But what is it that she's scared of? At night, she's chasing Miles, both riding a horse through the huge garden maze. He's escaping apparently. I don't know what from. And she's trying to stop him. I don't know why. I have no idea what's happening actually. Then Flora just appears in front of Kate and she almost hits her with the horse. So she wakes up in her bed. Suddenly she notices Giselle's ghost in this transparent, twitchy form in front of her bed. So naturally she screams and wakes up. Was it a nightmare within a nightmare? Are we watching Inception? Wow. Next day, with the kids, Miles says we should play the game that we turn off the lights and you try to find us and flash us. Yeah, you would like that, Miles, for me to flash you. Kate responds, I meant with a flashlight, Miles says. You promised Flora. Just stop making promises to this kid, Kate. Jeez. This is actually a good scene. She's looking around with the flashlight in the darkness. Suddenly we see Giselle's ghost behind her. There's no jump scare sound effect. Kate doesn't even see her. She's just standing quietly behind her. That's what makes good horror. She follows Miles through the basement and some creepy rooms. Stop, girl! For the love of God! Why are you going in there? At some point, she drops the flashlight and someone picks it up and flashes it in her eyes. It's a super creepy room filled with deer skulls and antlers. She finally escapes upstairs, tears in her eyes, bleeding from her nose, and the kids are sitting by the fireplace with Mrs. Gross. Explain yourself, Kate demands Miles. But he has been here with me for the last 15 minutes, groans Mrs. Gross. Kate receives a call from her mother. You have to come get me. They're trying to throw me out. Her mother begs desperately. I'm going crazy here. I don't think I can take this anymore. Kate responds, as if she's not even hearing what her mother is saying, as if it's not actually a two-sided conversation. Her mother is calling from the empty pool, and above there is a large black drawing of a ghostly woman. She goes back to her room. At this point, she looks all fucked up. She has just had enough of these fucking kids. She should say to hell with these kids and just leave. There's something seriously wrong with this house, but she has made a promise to stay. A pinky promise. She washes her face in the bathroom and Giselle's ghost appears in the mirror. Her and Kate's face slowly merge together in the mirror. She screams. She goes back to bed and suddenly a severed hand starts crawling on her shoulder like a spider. It's clear that the hands represent the pervert Quint putting his hands all over Giselle. The door slams open and shows Flora. I don't think you can sleep alone tonight, she says. I'm gonna sleep here with you. Oh my god, so creepy. In the last cycle, Mrs. Gross brings Kate an envelope from her mother. Did you already open my mail? Kate says. No, I did not, Mrs. Gross responds. She opens the envelope and finds black drawings like burnt plastic. I hope it is not genetic, Mrs. Gross says. Remember this part, we're gonna come back to this later. Later, Kate sees Giselle's ghost going in the woods. She follows her to the lake. She slips and falls in the lake and sees Giselle's corpse stuck to a branch at the bottom. She runs to the house. She hears the man and woman talking again. She enters the forbidden room and sees the bed is shaking. Yes, everyone, it's a PG-13 sex scene. Both parties are invisible. She realizes that Quint didn't only harass Giselle, but he eventually assaulted her. Quint's ghost appears in dark, transparent CGI, which actually looked good. Yeah, kinda good. Quint grabs Kate's neck and drops her to the ground, choking her. The door suddenly opens, and Mrs. Gross finds Kate on the ground, pleading to nothing, to air. It's Quint! He killed Giselle, Kate says desperately. Mrs. Gross says nothing. You knew and covered it. Kate says in a moment of realization. He was a brute, and he got what he deserved. I made sure of it, Mrs. Gross responds. Gasp. Quinn's ghost appears again and pushes Mrs. Gross down the stairs to her death. Kate rushes to the kids. Flora is sitting on her bed and Giselle's ghost is caressing her hair. Miles is in his room listening to loud music as if he was trapped by Quinn's ghost. Kate finally overpowers their resistance and reluctance and takes them to the car. We need to escape. They drive down the road, the same road as Giselle drove at the beginning. The gate is closed again, but it begins to open slowly, and they drive into the darkness. At the core of this movie, we have a simple ghost story. The estate manager, Quint, is infatuated with the kid's teacher, Giselle. He harasses and eventually assaults and murders her. Mrs. Gross covers this murder, but she also makes sure Quint meets his punishment with death. The house is haunted by these two ghosts, and Kate slowly unravels Giselle's murder, while Quint's ghost takes his revenge by pushing down Mrs. Gross down the stairs to her death. But that's the thing, the movie doesn't end there. That is not the ending. As the car's taillights vanish in the darkness, the camera zooms out as if that shot was just a part of a drawing, a black drawing that Kate takes out of her mother's envelope. Yup, we're back to that scene. It is so unsettling. This time, Mrs. Gross says something in the line of, "It is genetic and inevitable." Inevitable? She goes to the kids, but catches a glimpse of Quint's ghost in the mirror. "Did you see that?" she asks Miles and Flora. The kids deny. "You saw that. You had to." She frantically grabs Flora and pleads her. "Let her go," Miles shouts. The doll falls out of her hands and her face shatters on the floor. "You broke her," Flora cries. "I can fix her. I will fix her," Kate answers, as if it's not just the doll she's hoping to fix. "You can't fix her. She is broken, like you," Miles reassures us as he takes Flora away. We cut away to Kate in her room. Her bed is now in the middle of the empty pool. She approaches who we presume to be her mother, but as she turns, Kate screams in terror. The movie ends. Wait, what? What the That is the ending? Yes, that is literally how the movie ends. But what in the world all these mean? Is she seeing herself at the end instead of her mother? Has she turned into her mother, painting in an empty pool? The movie is called Turning after all. Or was she always the one drawing? Are Miles and Flora even real? Who hired Kate as a tutor? Who is even the legal guardian of these kids? Their parents are dead. Do they not have any relatives? The only adult we see in the house is Mrs. Gross. Is she their guardian? Does she construct the house, Miles, Flora, Giselle, and Quint in her mind? The story of how she saves those children, where she is the hero of the story? Is that why Flora can't leave the state? Flora dies if she leaves the state because she doesn't exist in the real world. Kate is drawing this story, their story. I thought to myself that I needed to watch this movie again to understand, but then again, I didn't care about this movie enough to do that. This movie is written and edited by so many people and gone through so many changes that I doubt even its makers would expect you to care. That's why they just dumped it on January. But this ending is what makes us talk about this movie. However a good or terrible choice it was, it's not an average horror movie anymore.